I'm ready. I'm primed and looking forward to a fantastic show. Hope you're watching rather there on the socials. Really want to get your engagement and questions over. I don't even know where because we've been jumping around and rush. But hey, we've got SHAK on the line, mate. Where are you at the moment?
I'm at an undisclosed location.
The Batman. Okay, thank you, Batman. Just so you know, Batman wore black, mate. That shirt.
No, he is black.
There we go. He wears it all the time. Love it.
He self-identifies as black man.
He does.
No, I'm actually in one of my lounge rooms, because I'm not in my office because Microsoft blew my laptop up. I'm not taking responsibility, so I'm blaming them. So.
Bill Gates, he's got his hand in everything, right? He's causing all the problems in the world. The other people we have in the room, or we're literally in the studio here at Edge, of course, it's Derek Whittaker, the star of the show. The show is all about you, mate.
We all about me. Okay.
No, you've got the laptop. That's how it works, okay? Well, you are the Hunter Biden of the show right now. You have the laptop.
Great. Who needs enemies when you got friends?
Damn straight, mate. That's how we work. We're Australian.
It's good to see you shaved today, Aaron.
Just my back.
There you go.
All right. We're going to get into the show. And of course, popping in every so often with the juvenile comments, it will be Mr. Cartier, Travis Carter, the alias Shave Monkey, mate. Great to see you. Good to have you here as part of the show.
It's actually, believe it or not, it's nice being back.
It is. It's nice. It's
Had
nice to have you back.
Bit of a family issue, so that's now effectively being resolved. But yeah.
Sorry. Who's it nice for that you're back?
Me. I get to pull the piss out of Aaron nonstop again. So, yes.
Oh, dear. All right, let's jump into the show because we have some great stuff to cover, mate. And look, as I say, you've got the laptop. You are in charge. Let's get into the first subject. What would that be?
Well, a lot of Aussies got to Facebook again and said, you know what, we want to do the Cash is King Day again.
Yes.
And so they were urging Aussies to rush to the ATMs, withdraw money in the act of defiance as part of their event, and that was on the June the 14th of 2024. Bank branch or ATM, get it out, use it, don't lose it, was their catch cry. Okay. I think the difference on this one is that it's taken mainstream media's attention now. I mean, I'm reading this from Sky News, looking at their report on it, and this is the second wave of it. We've also seen the politicians like Bill Katter and that come out and say we want cash to stick around,
yes,
particularly for emergency situations. If you know, a hurricane happens or a flood and the ATMs are down, how are you going to buy things that you need without having cash? And people are starting to think deeper about, well, if this goes, there is the level of convenience in terms of how do we do things in an emergency, but there's also the thing of what does it mean for our freedoms? And it's interesting this discussion is happening and seeing these social moves happen in terms of ways Australians are thinking about it. There is some pushback against the reliance on digital payments.
Yes. Look, and it's not even hurricanes or floods or whatever, okay? The reality is every day it happens. How often is there an internet problem? How often are we finding I've had situations this week, last week where I've had to go I wanted to pay for something, and thankfully I've had some cash because guess what? The terminal's down or there's a problem.
Well, it's not just that as well. Like every night the banks do updates.
Yes.
For ANZ, it's between 2 and 3 WA time, where all your cards, like especially if you've got your cards loaded up into your mobile phone, so you don't actually have a physical card, none of that works.
Not at all.
So Bob Katter was actually in Parliament House in Canberra trying to buy a bottle of wine with cash, and the kiosk person or whatever they call it in Canberra, their FPOS machines and all that weren't working, and they had no way to actually accept the cash.
Well, the next question is, how are you buying wine at the cafeteria? This is a pretty good cafeteria.
You obviously haven't been in a tour in the Canberra.
Oh, no, I have not been to the
I'd like a wine latte.
Aaron, have you ever read the legislation that comes out of that place? Do you think these people are sober?
No way. Not Jackie Lambie.
Even the Perth one, like the Parliament House here, you literally sit down, they go coffee, wine. The first thing they give you when you go for a lunch there is the wine menu.
Yes.
Like they don't even give you food. It's like, right, what alcohol do you want? And it's like, and it's not like cheap bottles of wine either. There's some really expensive wine bottles in there, and it's all paid for taxpayers. So it's funny they complain about staffers getting drunk on the taxpayers' money. It's like, well, go have a look at the politicians. They're constantly drunk on taxpayers' money.
Yep.
So,
all right, but
maybe I should become a politician. That doesn't change me a bloody fortune.
Yeah. Especially with what you drank.
Well, you like to argue, so they've got that going for you.
Absolutely. All right, but this push for cash, right? Let's talk about this, because this is something that is really prevalent, and there's been a big push, electronic all the way, yada yada yada. I just see so many problems. I really do, and I always, for me, it comes back to privacy. People go, if you've got nothing to hide, then hide nothing. Well, hang on, no. I have a right. It is not a privilege for privacy. If I want to go and buy something for cash, right, I have that right. It makes me, and I'm often like stuff for the station, whatever. We have a lot of memorabilia around. We've got a lot of I don't know what you call it, but basically pop culture stuff.
These things.
Yeah, and you know what? People who sell that kind of stuff all want cash, funny enough, right?
Well, you get it on the second-hand market, like the flea
exactly
market
right.
type thing. You're not going to get that in retail in the mall.
No, you're not. No,
Yeah.
not at all.
Just for a start, right? What's this? If you've got nothing to hide, what are you scared of? Well, if that's the case, then why is the government so scared? Because the government doesn't give us any transparency over what they do. Look at all the shit the government gets up to, right? Well, government, if you've got nothing to hide, why are you hiding? Right? Treat me the same way. Thank you very much. Get out of my life. Get out of my bedroom. Get out of my house. Get out of my wife's body. Not that I have a wife, but if I did, just leave us alone. We're okay. Thank you very much.
Think about a particular list that Heffernan had a few years ago, right? And that's been suppressed for 99 years, whatever the case was. If you've got nothing to hide, let's talk about that, right? Yeah. All right.
Well, it's the first mark of losing your freedom.
I might just remind everybody in Western Australia, right, that during COVID, the West Australian Police said that the app would only be used for health purposes, right? It would never be used for anything else. And then the new commissioner, I say new because I've been in WA for so long, the new commissioner then does a radio interview where he's asked, well, how come you use this to track, organised criminals and this and that? And he just said, oh, well, they're organised crime figures, blah, blah, blah. I'll make no apologies. So you lied. You lied to us.
Yeah.
Right? It wasn't to track criminals. It was to track witnesses to the crime.
Wow.
Oh, well, that's okay. Well, that's even worse. But the point is, the point is, you lied to us. Now, here's the thing, government. If you're going to lie to us all the bloody time, okay, don't expect us to trust you. Fuck off. And I might just add, like New South, I'm not sure what happens in WA, but in New South Wales, I've got these cameras now to see whether you're on your phone. And a friend of mine's girlfriend, and she was like wearing a little skirt and stuff, and she had her phone in a lap, right? Pretty revealing photograph. Really, we don't need you inside our cars. Like, go away. I remember a few years ago when I was in WA, there was an ad, right, where the guy's driving along and he's got his two kids in the back seat, and there's this bitchy-looking psycho cop sitting in the back seat in between his kids watching the speedometer. Can you get out of the car? Like, who invited you to this car? Go away. I don't understand. And these people actually think that they can put an ad like that on TV and have all these billboards around, and the public's like, yeah, that sounds amazing. Imagine having a cop looking over my shoulder 24/7 to see if I might be doing something wrong. Who are the people that are supporting this?
Well, it's certainly gone away from the image of, constable care, right? Where you can approach the police about something that, is concerning you. That's the problem. That's how they want to portray themselves to children. But when they're doing it to adults, and portraying it to adults, hey, we're in your back seat. We're going to monitor you.
I've brought this up before, right? Okay, this is a very simple thing in psychology. But in the early 90s, they changed the police cars, the writing on the police cars, right? They lowered the line with the checkered carry on with it. Okay, and they also changed to lowercase on the writing, and the reason was psychology, right, was that it's less threatening, and they wanted to see in the early 90s they were trying to make the police seem less an authority and more a part of the community and actually working for the positive side of the community, right? So they did that. They acknowledged that, they made that, right? Guess what? When COVID came, all back to capitals. That's telling in itself, right? It's showing the psychology of, no, we are enforcers. It's a police force. These are not people who work for the community. And you're right. That image of someone sitting in the back of the car watching your Speedo, that with your kids, I don't want anyone from the government touching my kids.
So in the interest of transparency, the police force was always a force. It was a part of the military originally. So they did that because they had a lot of public relations issues, especially shooting a dude in front of a mattress to catch the bullet and all this sort of stuff. So they actually did it to try and build the trust in the police force again. So they even stopped calling it a police force. And then everyone's going, oh, they're not a force. They're just you're there to serve and protect us. And well, actually, not really. When you really look at their origins, they are a force. So, again, not all cops are bad.
Yes, they are.
Had a few really bad run-ins with cops when I was a teenager. No, I didn't steal a computer game. And no, that's legit. I didn't steal it. I actually purchased it to another store. Went in, I was 12. I was saying if I got a good deal. So I took it into Tanny Electronics, and then the cop slammed me on the ground, smashed my face in the ground, put my hands behind my back, and tried to arrest me with no evidence whatsoever. We had the receipt for the purchase as well. So yes, there are dickhead cops. But then there's when I lost my driver's license for not paying my speeding tickets, there used to be a cop that'd pick me up from work every day and drive me home to make sure I didn't drive without a license.
So there's good bad people in every profession. Let's face it, right? All right,
but no, gentlemen. Sorry, I can't let that slide. Every cop is bad. Every single cop is bad, right? And I hope members of WA Police are watching this. If you don't like it, come and arrest me for defamation. Let me explain why they're bad. How many times you're driving down the freeway, you're doing the speed limit, and you see the cops go flying past you? No lights, no sirens. How many times do you see that? How many times do you see police do things that you know if you did, you'd be in trouble? Now, do you think that Constable Care sitting in the passenger seat ever says to his or her partner, hey, buddy, pull over for a minute, get out of the car, do that swagger, walk around to the driver's side, so I'm going to give you a speeding ticket? No, of course not. Why? Because it's ridiculous. Because no cop would ever do that, because you can't do that to your colleagues because it's ridiculous. So what do? They don't do it to each other, but they're then going to say, oh, we're going to fine you if you're doing 5 kilometers over the speed limit in a school zone, right? So they want to impose and so-called enforce laws against the rest of us that they would never be able to live by themselves. And those are the same people that have the ability to go to their bloody police union, like the cowards that they are, right? And instead of going to the police union and saying, hey, can you, when you're standing up for us, maybe we should lay off on the public. But do they do it? No. So those police officers that stand by and do absolutely nothing when they see their colleagues doing something wrong, well, you know what? If I was watching you guys do something wrong, I'm supposed to have some obligation to report it. Do they do that? No, thin blue line. So bullshit. Every single police officer is bad because every single police officer watches their colleagues do the wrong thing and does nothing about it. Don't get me started.
Well, yeah, look, I could join that sermon, that's for sure. I mean, just some carry on that's happened in my life in the not too distant past. I don't have a great opinion of the police, but and I don't even know how we got onto this subject, but the reality is that, again, we said this before in an earlier show about community. This is the great thing. This has been so much division. We've now got an us and them mentality on that as well.
Oh, that's because they keep labeling everyone. The moment you label someone, you create an us and them. So, just going back
just for how we got to this subject. Firstly, I'll blame Derek for it because it's his show. Secondly, do you guys remember about sort of 10, 15 years ago, right? West Australian Police said, oh, hey, crime's out of control, and they started importing these jellybacks from bloody England and stuff like that, right? And you watch this going, oh, gee, really, crime's out of control? I mean, it sounds really serious. Like, what's happening in Western Australia? Because I live in Western Australia, and it doesn't seem that bad a place. And on the front page of the West Australian, there's some dickhead who sped past the speeding camera and put his finger up at the Molten Over. Like, okay, he's a dickhead, but really, if that's front page of the news, how bad could crime really be? So then WA Police decided that they needed to set up a task force. I think, wow, task force. Well, this must be really bad. I wonder what the bikies are up to now. This must be, this is awful. And they set up a 50-person task force and sent them to Mandurah. Do you guys remember that? And what was this 50-person task force trying to fight against down in Mandurah? Well, there was a bunch of old people down there, and what these old people were doing was they didn't have speed limiters on their gophers, and some of these gophers were going at 14 kilometres an hour when they should have been limited to 10 kilometres an hour. Well, thank goodness the West Australian Police were down there with bloody handheld speed cameras in the bloody park, hiding behind trees, catching 80-year-old grandma, right, for zooming around, for hooning on her bloody gopher. I mean, come on. if this is the way the police act, they don't deserve and they shouldn't be expecting any level of respect from us.
Hey, Shaq, you don't love this. I was actually in Mandurah at that time because that's where I grew up.
It's probably your fault.
No, it gets worse. It gets worse. So this is when all the talking on your mobile phones while driving laws first started coming out as well. So a lady pushing a pram got fined for using a mobile phone whilst driving. She was walking. No, deadly serious.
I remember that.
Yeah, she was walking with her mobile phone, pushing a pram, and the police arrested her.
Yeah,
so that's how stupid.
Exactly, and these are the people like we were talking about cash. That's what we were starting off with. And these are the people like, oh, just trust the government. If you've got nothing to hide, are you kidding me? What do you mean if I've got nothing to hide? Like, I'm just going to give you one. I think it's pretty clear. I don't like the police very much or authority in any way. But so I was at the Italy Sporties Club. There was a guy who used to come down there, and he was a quadriplegic, right? But he had limited movement in his arms, and he had a wheelchair, like a motorized wheelchair that he used to get around on. So he's down the club. He's having a few beers. He was a school teacher. He lived across the road from the club, and yeah, of course, the coppers come and get him because he had to leave the footpath to go onto the road in order to cross the road. Right? Oh, he got done for drink driving. Are you serious? Like what? Can you imagine being married to someone like that? Imagine this bloke coming home. Oh, what'd you do today? Oh, I fought crime today. Look at what I did today. Meanwhile, my partner flew down the Graham Farmer Freeway at 130 clicks an hour, and I didn't do a bloody thing. But we're not all bad. Some of us are good. Yeah, give me a break.
Hey, look, anything with government attached to it is going to be an absolute nightmare. I just recently, I'll throw this quickly and we'll get back to bloody the subject. But a little
off topic.
Yeah, a little bit off topic. Okay,
just a smidge.
I've received several fines, right, for not handing in the number plate of my vehicle that was unlicensed because of my house burning down, right? And me not being able to. Now, my house burnt down because of the government, right? Yeah. The government not looking after the land, letting the weeds get to 1.8 meters high, even though I've contacted them, and even though on writing I told them about it, and they did absolutely nothing to do with all the adjacent land. They just let it grow well into the fire season. But okay, they've caused the fire. Then they won't give me access to my belongings, so then I can't go and then return the number plates. So then they fine me for that. Right. And they said, look, it's all right. You can actually apply to have that fine reduced. Right. But you're going to need a lot of documentation. And I said, look, I don't have time for this. And the fact is that where is your level of compassion?
It doesn't exist.
It just doesn't exist. And they're going, well, under the legislation, you've been charged. So I get hundreds of dollars worth of fines for the fact that just to rub in the fact that you didn't give me access to my own belongings, the last few belongings I was actually left with after a fire that you caused. It's just, there's our government. I mean, that's they do not work for the people, they're against the people.
Aaron, I'm going to have to put this back on you, mate. I think this is your fault, right? All you had to do was go down there and tell them that you were black, and this would have been sorted, right? Because you remember, if you guys remember how courageous, these courageous, amazing people that have such a difficult job, right? Do you remember what they did during COVID? When the BLM writers were out there, especially in Victoria, what did they do? Oh, the police, the big, courageous, amazing police took a knee. And then when the COVID protesters came out, they went in and they arrested a pregnant woman in her pajamas in front of her children. Or they took that disabled guy in Victoria and threw him to the ground. And picked him up out of his wheelchair and threw him on the ground. Oh, what heroes. Oh, thank you so much. And it's not just state police, by the way. Remember the Bali 8? Remember how the federal police, what they did there? Those people, look, unfortunately, I'm going to have to say, if you commit a drug offense in Asia, the penalty is the death penalty. You know that, okay? So you shouldn't do it. So my level of sympathy is somewhat limited, except for the fact that your parent came in and said, hey, look, this is a situation, blah, blah. Please look after our kids, bring them back, blah, blah. And what did they do? They went and arranged for it so that these kids would end up getting caught over there. And what happened? They all got shot in the end, right? And these are the people that we're supposed to trust. These people are like, I don't need any money. No, I don't need any cash. Here. Yeah, look into my bank account. Yeah, no worries. Because I've got nothing to hide. And if I've got nothing to hide, what am I worried about?
Well,
Absolutely.
I trust cash very much. So I'd like to talk a bit about that. So what subject are we going to transition to, my friend?
Well, there's interesting things that are going on as far as money being pulled out of New York City.
Yes.
And we've got some interesting things that are happening. I've got about 3 different reports on this and what's happening in the US that you're probably not hearing in the mainstream. I've got some video footage to play now that I'd like us to have a look at. Where are investors taking their money? That's really interesting.
Straight into it.
Yep.
I don't want to go to jail. I don't want 38 convictions or 34 convictions. I don't want 7 years, something I did 7 years ago, to be a problem today.
Do you know of any other investors, real estate or otherwise, who are pulling out of New York and New York State?
I have 15,000 investors with me at Cardone Capital. We've raised $1.3 billion. If I went to them today and said, I want to invest in New York City, they would not give me money to do that. We had $500 million to invest in New York City this year. We have since reallocated that money to Florida real estate. New York City is...
You don't trust the legal system in New York? You don't trust the politics here? Is that it?
Well, you already... As many great things that are going on in New York City, you just have too many other risks that as a fiduciary of other people's money, I can't raise the rents. I can't evict. I cannot predict the taxes. We're going to reward people. I literally might be required to provide housing to illegal people. I can't collect the rents, and I can't get them out of the property. I can't call the police to actually do anything when there's a crime on the property. If I can't collect my rents, I don't.
So there you go. You see the management of risk there to investors, and they're starting to look at this and go, well, where is my money better parked due to the risks happening? And these are all political issues that they're talking about.
They are.
This is always our point, is that politics influences money, investments, economy. Investors are looking for a good bet as to where their money might actually make money.
Yeah.
And they're looking at New York City going, it's out of control right now.
It's dangerous. I mean, honestly, it's a dangerous investment. And if you were going to make a dangerous investment, you've got to know there's higher risk, and therefore it should be a higher return. The return hasn't changed.
No.
The risk is gone.
The return's zero.
Yeah.
The return is it's negative, because let's have a look at, he's talking about property investments there straight off the bat. So first of all, you've got the capital gains. Here's one way to earn money on it. You've got the rental returns and any modifications and stuff like that. So you really only have 2 sources of income besides the tax deductions. So they've literally said they can't evict people for not paying rent. Okay. So why pay rent? If you're not getting kicked out, why pay rent? Fuck it, I'm not paying rent.
Yep.
So first of all, your investments, and we're probably talking anywhere between $200,000 to $500,000 here, and you're getting zero return on the rental value of that house.
Sure, this is New York. You'd be paying more.
Well, whatever it is,
200,000 to 500,000, and I'm not saying this to be funny. This is actually the prices. 200,000 to 500,000 is a car park, maybe a parking space.
So what? 1 million per house?
Oh, no, you wouldn't even. A million bucks might get you a tent. Like we're talking like many millions of dollars to buy something. Yeah.
Okay, and then you can't charge rent.
No.
So why the hell would anyone in their right mind even look at a place in New York? Like that's fucking retarded. So as a property investor myself, I'm looking at capital gains, rental returns to cover the expenses until I cash out. And if there's no chance to get rental returns, I can't evict people, I can't do repairs, and I can't get money to pay for those repairs. I wouldn't even touch it with a 10-foot pole. If you gave me $5 million, says, right, I want you to buy something in New York, I wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
I say, keep your money, I'm not. Because it's not costing money to maintain that house.
Let me just mention a couple of things that you guys may not be aware of. A lot of New York properties, especially the top-end properties, are actually sitting vacant. And the thing... because they don't need to actually get rental money for it. It's just an investment, and you're going to get capital growth over time. But here's the other thing: capital gains tax. I don't want to bore everybody with this, but capital gains tax is actually occurs in the location where you're tax resident at the time. So, for example, if the 4 of us were crazy and went and bought property in New York and then sold it for a profit, we wouldn't actually pay any capital gains tax to the United States. We would all be paying capital gains tax here in Australia. So if we happen to live in a country where there was no capital gains tax, New Zealand, we wouldn't have to pay any. And there's a lot of countries out there in Asia, won't name them, that have special rules that say, oh, actually, you don't have to pay any capital gains tax here. But if you then set up a subsidiary company and locate it in the United States, you can get the deductions, right? But you don't ever have to pay the capital gains tax. So it's a very manipulated market in the first place, and it's certainly not stable. And the thing is that whatever New York's trying to achieve, all they're doing is they're making it harder for Americans to actually get ahead. And for most Western investors that are coming from similar countries to the United States, don't want to touch New York, because why would you? And even if you, like, I've been saying this for years, and it actually really hurts me to say it because I have such a deep admiration and respect for the United States. But why would you ever set a company up there? What possible reason would you have? People say to me, oh, because it's a really big market. Yeah, it is. Go set the company up in Canada, because you've got the free trade agreement. So if you set your company up in Toronto, you've got easy access to New York. Set the company up in Vancouver, you've got easy access to California. Why on earth, what possible reason would you have to set up a company for an international investor who's not a US citizen, not a US tax resident? Why on earth would you set something up in the United States? Now, I hate saying that because, again, I love that country so much. But what they have done is just destroy whatever it would be that would make them attractive to international investors.
But if you set up in Canada, you've got the issue of
Canadian.
Well, no, you got the issue of Trudeau getting into your bank account or freezing your bank account. There's that issue. You know, this.
No. But that's only for Canadians. That's only for Canadians. Okay. That's the whole thing. Look at Australia, right? You can look at almost any Western country in the world and you look at their government and go, are you people out of your mind? But then when you actually look at the rules, it only applies to people who actually live there, to their own citizens, right? If you're not a citizen, oh, please come on in. We'll do whatever you want. We'll have a special sitting of Parliament to pass laws and rules to give you exemptions to the rules we've got, like that ridiculous the Aboriginal heritage, the moving snake going through the sky and stuff like that. Okay, those people who live in Western Australia, you're going to be subject to that. But if you're a foreign investor, you can get an exemption from that. Do you guys know that?
Yes, I did.
Parliament will actually give you an exemption from it. I mean, all our government does is hurt us. And for what reason, I don't know. That's the same thing in Canada.
Yeah. So bringing it back to the property, like that's all good and all that sort of stuff. But as you're looking at the actual operational cost of it, if you're not getting rent from property and then tenants just damage shit, that's just what they do. There's general wear and tear on every investment property. It doesn't matter where it is. Something will break, a door handle will snap off. So you're going to have all these outlays and you've got no return. So
you've got it also.
If you had an investment where you had to keep putting money into it and you were guaranteed not to get any money back for it, would you buy it?
No. Derek, your thoughts?
Well, I did, but thankfully her and I broke up.
Yeah, exactly. So that just proves the point. Why would, if that's the laws in New York, why would you ever even look at it as a source of income?
Part of the issue here, Travis, is you're looking at property from an Australian perspective and not an American perspective. Americans treat property quite differently over there. They look at it more as a consumable as opposed to an asset.
Right.
Well, they see it as an asset, but it's different. It's different the way they view it. I discovered this when I was doing a US property syndication some years ago. It was not something that they kind of wanted to treasure forever and this sort of thing.
Right.
So yeah, it's a very different attitude.
Because we've got the castle kind of attitude here, right? Whereas they said it's a transition of then when
you know, it's really funny. We've got the castle attitude, but we don't have castle laws. But they've got castle laws in America, but they don't look at it as a castle.
I think it's a lot of it's linked to the way Australians were. You know, if they were prisoners, one of their marks of freedom was that they would be able to own property.
Yes.
And I think that still is in the psyche of Australia.
I think you're absolutely right.
But in America, it's a very different view.
Okay.
I find that's
why look, maybe I am. I don't want to come across as being too agitated today because I'm actually not. I'm actually in a good mood. But you brought up the police earlier. I don't understand political strategy, right? Like Albo and the Labor Party are talking about imposing taxes on the family home. Are you serious? Don't touch the family. Australians have taken so much from you.
SHAK,
don't take our homes.
SHAK, this is the party of the people, of the worker. So what we're doing is, as the worker,
they want you to stay as the worker.
Yeah, we're going to tax the family home. We're going to give you death taxes, and we're going to tax your family ute. Like there could not, these socialists of the Australian Labor Party, and you know, each way elbow, right? They could not be any more anti everyday Australian if they tried.
Well, here's an interesting story that's come out from trendingpoliticsnews.com about Trump, what he's proposed. Apparently, there's a rumor going on that on a bustling Thursday in Washington, D.C., former President Donald Trump conveyed with GOP lawmakers at the Capitol Hill Club floating discussions about trade policies that wants to find his tenure in the White House. What they're looking is that he has an advocacy for using tariffs as leverage in international negotiations, and that he might employ them to gain the upper hand over what are referred as bad actors on the global stage. Boil this all down. He's looking at there's a bold proposal, apparently in this private gathering, that an all tariff policy might be imposed, which would lead to the abolition of the income tax in the United States. So what happens is if you are importing goods from outside of the United States, you're going to pay top dollar for that stuff because a lot of it's loaded up with tariffs. To, of course, increase local production, those tariffs would not be imposed, and they'd offset what they are gaining in that by reducing or get rid of income tax in the United States.
Okay, but then if that has the desired result, right, and then stuff gets made in America again, which is great, jobs and basically people's raising their quality of living. But okay, if you do that, then how are you going to then raise taxes to run the country?
Well, they're doing it on the tariffs.
No, I realize that. But what I'm saying is that, okay, so the tariffs work so well, right? So that all that money coming in of all those imported things stops people from importing, okay? Lowers the imports and then makes people start producing more locally made product, right? Won't that then create a problem that they just don't have enough money to run the country? I love the idea.
America won't be able to produce enough to be able to do everything in-house.
No. I know I'm going to get flamed by our very right-wing audience, but I'm not some massive lefty. I'm really not. But look, I'm not going to jump on the "we all hate Trump" bandwagon because I don't hate him. I think that he has been an effective president, but that proposal is completely ludicrous. And not only is it ludicrous, but for the United States being the country that goes around the world talking about free trade to then introduce an indiscriminate tariff, I might get Donald Trump and those those people that go around and they dress up like they're the people that wrote the Constitution. These idiots. Can you just go back and have a look at your own history, please? Can you have a look and see what happened last time when you had tariffs and you're an insular country? Go back and have a look at your beloved Thomas Jefferson and John Adams and talk and have a look at what they were arguing about the foundation of your country. This is not going to work. It's a terrible idea. Don't do it. If there's any place on earth that shouldn't do it, it's the United States.
Well, once upon a time, there was no income tax in the United States, right? It was the companies that paid the taxes.
Yes.
And I think, got to look at those models once again.
Once upon a time, you could marry a 12-year-old too. That doesn't mean that because they did it back then, it's a good idea.
That's ludicrous to compare that to that. That's just ludicrous. I'm calling you out on that.
Some Arabic countries do it.
But hang on, Derek. You're going to say, okay, well, once upon a time, 250 years ago, they didn't have income tax. You're correct, they didn't. But it's very easy for us. And again, I know why people are saying, "Oh, SHAK, we thought you were sort of a right-wing person. Now you're such a lefty." Let's just be reasonable here, okay? We all have the luxury of living in a country that if we get sick or we break our leg or something like that, we're going to get our health care. We know that our kids can go to school and be indoctrinated, or we can homeschool them and get some level of government funding, right? We know that our roads are going to be made, all that sort of stuff. That's not the situation that the United States was in all those years ago, a couple of centuries ago. So look, I agree with you. I don't like paying tax. I don't think anybody does. But to suggest that because they didn't pay tax before, what they should do is to come up with indirect taxes, I'm all for it. I totally agree that they should have indirect taxation. But to suggest that they should do it by tariffs, it doesn't work. It didn't work for them before. It's not going to work for them now. And Donald Trump knows better. And in my opinion, what he's doing is he's trying to appeal to his base, knowing that it's not going to work.
Look, let's be honest, okay? He didn't say it publicly. It was, it was leaked, right? Okay. This is politics, right? He never has an intention of doing that. He has an intention of widening up and shoring up his base. That's what that's all about. Having said that, I actually agree with Derek on this one from the point of view of we need to explore other ideas, okay? Because currently what's happening is not working, right?
I want to jump in on this one. So first of all, we hire people for one of the lines contracts now.
Sure.
So if someone is paying less taxes than I am as a business owner, why the fuck would I have a business in the first place? Like, it's just stupid. I'd wrap up because there's no point. I'm already paying enough public liability insurances, superannuation. There's all those other things with hiring someone. It's just not worth it. No, fuck off. So the second thing is, if you really want to talk about, and I'm talking Australia here, not America, have you seen how little tax the major mining companies are actually paying for our resources right now? If you look purely at gas, we are the number one producer in gas. We earn something like 2% of what Saudi Arabia and those other oil producing gas companies do. So why? That's the place where we need to look at fixing up our tax brackets, our royalties and all that sort of stuff, because the government is giving away our resources for free. We are not getting any money for it. Now, the government didn't ask, well, they kind of did, but at no point did they put it to, hey, do you want to give away all our resources for free to these major corporations? No, they just went in and made the laws. But the thing is, no one's actually talking about it, so no one's actually bringing these issues up. There was something like $400 billion that we missed out on revenue from the tax things. There's a dude on YouTube. He's called the Aussie Puntant. Really good information, great figures there, and that he really goes right down into it. Went to go to the Santos convention, got kicked out because he's not one of them. Right. So this is where all the politicians, Peter Dutton was in there, Albanese was in there, like all the major politicians were there. But the bit that really shits me on this one, this is what we really need to crack down onto. Who's Mark McGowan working for now?
Yeah.
BHP, Rio Tinto as well. You have a look at all these people that were making these laws and agreements with the mining companies. Have a look who they work for now.
Of course they do.
They're consultants.
I don't know why we take it. Like, we know how corrupted our political system is. Why do we put up with this? I don't get it.
I can answer it. Derek's gonna love this one. The greatest trick Satan ever pulled was convincing people he didn't exist. So the greatest trick that the politicians pulled is convincing people that politics don't matter.
No. They try to convince you that they're honourable people. You know, the right honourable so and so. Piss right off. But let me just say a couple of things on this tax issue, because I think there's an important point here. So when the sort of moderate, maybe slightly lefty Turnbull said what we should do is increase the GST to 15% and to decrease income taxes, he was shot down by both sides of politics. When Julia Gillard talked about having a super mining tax, she was shot down by both sides of politics. But here's the thing. A lot of people say to me, because I travel to the Middle East, and they say, oh, SHAK, it's not that you're anti-government, you're just greedy. You just don't want to pay taxes. Well, when people look at those Middle Eastern countries and say there's no taxes over there, just remember the tax rates there are actually really high if you're in energy or oil exploration. Right now, I remember I was looking at this particular mine site in Indonesia, and the deal was we met with the president over there, and the deal was, if you guys can develop this site, it's going to cost you a certain amount of money. If you guys can develop this site, you can recover everything that you've put into it, right? You can recover all the money you put in. Once you've done that, we want half. You can have half, and out of your half, you've got to pay for all your running costs and everything else. But we want half because this is the national resource that belongs to the people. I think that's actually pretty good. I think that actually makes a lot of sense. But what are we doing here in Australia? We're going to sit there and say to someone who's a nurse, hey, if you go and do overtime, right, because you're trying to, I'm talking from the heart here because my mother's a nurse, you want to work overtime because you want to put your child through private school, what we're going to do is when you're doing those extra shifts, we're going to charge you a higher level of tax because, you can afford it. Meanwhile, I'll just remind everybody that, I think last time I was on or the time before that we're on, we have Australians right now who are lonely, who don't have any company, who are actually skipping meals in order to feed their pet cats and dogs because that's the only companionship they've got. So the poor in this country are getting completely fucked, and the government's sitting there and creating tax laws that don't help anybody. It's an absolute disgrace.
You are wrong, SHAK. They do help someone. They help other politicians. They help their politicians. They help keep. They basically all they're doing is funding their own careers because this is what the lobbying groups are doing, making sure that they stay in play. Now,
where's our lobby?
want to talk about these subjects that are coming up from our listeners and
deployable. I like this guy. Tax mining industries to subsidize manufacturing. The most pro-tax comment I've made. Some of the other comments that he makes are golden.
Should I leave? Should I leave now? Should I leave now, boys? I feel like I've turned our audience left.
Oh, you have the right to remain silent. Please use it.
You know what, Shaq? You should run as the VP for America.
No. You have to put a skirt on first, though.
Yeah.
All right.
I'll put a skirt on. I don't think that I can. I don't quite think I can pull off the Kamala laugh. But you know what? I do actually. I just want to bring something up if I can. I know I've been making like jokes about being left or right. I just want to tell you where I'm coming from. I don't like big corporations, right? And that sounds a bit counterintuitive because I trade big corporations in the stock market and make shitloads of money doing it. But what I really don't like is the way that they have the ability to influence and manipulate government in such a way that it makes our lives more difficult. I don't like that. I think it's wrong. Now, once upon a time, that put me on the left. Now, all of a sudden, that puts me on the right. I haven't changed that much. I still don't like big corporations. It is totally beyond me why, like when we were growing up, we're all roughly the same age, right? When we were growing up, if you wanted to be a rebel, I grew my hair long. When I finished at private school, I grew my hair long. Maybe you get an earring. Now, and what you'd do is you'd rebel against authority. It didn't matter who was in charge because we didn't really understand who was in charge and we didn't really understand left-right politics. It's just if you're authority, we're going to rebel against you. Now we've got a generation of people that say to their parents, guess what? I'm a rebel. And I'm such a rebel that I'm going to be obedient to government. And mum and dad, I'm going to cut my tits off. I mean, no, you cut your hair short, sweetheart. Don't cut your tits off. What the hell is this?
Yeah, rebellion certainly changed, right? Honestly, yeah. Now right wing, okay, people or centre right people are seen as these extremists because they've got conservative ideas like, I don't know, having a family, or that men are men and women are women.
The bit that I find the most hilarious. So I'm 40, so I grew up with some really interesting music. And I have to say, like, I know everyone rages saying, the 60s music was best, 70s music. Nah, I have to say, I think we had the most interesting music because it was just out there. There's so many different things. So the bit I find fascinating is when I was in my early 20s, there's this one performer who got banned from nearly every single country. And I'm talking about Eminem.
Sure.
So he's just released a song called Houdini, and it's actually really, really good. The video clip is fucking hilarious. He's got a nut shot with a smiley face over the top of it.
Okay.
Anyway, so what's happening? All these millennial and Gen Xers are listening to this show. They're getting super offended, and they're like, oh, this is one of their most tamest songs he's ever released, and everyone's just cracking the shits. But what's happening? All the people like the 40-year-olds, they're like, oh no, just go listen to his old stuff. It's even worse. And so there's all these younger generations trying to ban this old performer. And then all the old generation are actually trying to stop him from being banned. So I think it's something like 58 million views in 2 days or something. Like, it's just gone ape shit.
What's it called?
Houdini.
Okay.
And it's the backing track is Abracadabra. So it's actually a really, really good song.
Well, I'm going to
lots of swearing.
Get online and get that sorted out for us soon enough. We're running out of time on the show, though. We're at that sort of time. So let's change tack a little bit.
There's two different things. I want to talk about money leaving New York potentially. There is a proposal that a Dallas-based Texas stock exchange might come in 2026. It's been filing under the U.S. Securities Exchange Commission later this year.
Looks like someone's happy.
Over 24 investors.
It's really funny because it looks dodgy because your hand's going backwards and forwards there, Shaq.
It might have 120 million.
That's how excited I am about it.
24 investors, 120 million in capital, and it's expected at exchange to file with the SEC, according to CNN. And this is quite a huge move. You're seeing money potentially moving from a blue state to a red state in the United States. And another big development this week is Saudi Arabia has not extended its contract with the United States to trade with the petrodollar. So that's a really, really interesting state in terms of the BRICS nations and where they're going with that one. Of course, all US dollars, all oil deals were done in US dollars previously, and now we're seeing nations doing these deals in their local currencies or whatever they decide suits them. with them wanting to create their own economies.
So, question for you, Derek: how soon until Saudi Arabia needs a big dose of freedom?
The people will do that for them anyway. And the new prince, to be fair, the new prince is actually much more liberal than the sort of brutal Wahhabism of the past. But let me just say, I've been saying this since I started in finance. When I was a teenager, I do not understand why the Middle East has pegged its currency to the US dollar. Well, I know why they did it, but that peg has got to go. And it will. There's no doubt in my mind whatsoever that in my lifetime, and maybe sooner than what I was expecting, that they will depeg. You have to have some level of autonomy over your own currency. And that also applies to the euro. All right. It was a cute idea. It was never going to work. And the euro must fail. It's just not sustainable to those poorer countries in Europe that have been absolutely screwed over by it. Same thing if you're in the Middle East. How would you feel if your national resource is denominated in another currency and that country has got enormous levels of debt and inflates its currency, thereby reducing the value of your asset, and you've got no control over it? No way. I wouldn't put up with that. Would you guys want to put up with that? No, of course not. So I think the Middle East is absolutely correct in depegging. I think it's absolutely correct not to renew the petrodollar contracts. And hey, let's get ready for one hell of a ride. And the United States, it's a magnificent country, and I think it will survive. It will do very well, but maybe they'll be a little bit more responsible and stop taking advantage of the rest of the world by having ridiculously bad and economic decisions that they make, which affects the rest of us.
I think the US government, politicians have been pegging a lot of countries for a long time. Let's be absolutely frank. I
love your terminology there.
It's been said for a reason. I think the US dollar is going to have a massive collapse. I think that a lot of people are talking about this at the moment, but certainly I'm no great expert, but that seems to be the general sort of thought. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
America's just got too much money out there at the moment. Not just because how do I put it? With money transfers, because they've been using the US dollar for so long, a lot of countries have been borrowing American money to be able to do whatever they need to do. So yeah, America has a lot of debt, but they've also got a lot of money out there. So I think America will be losing their status as the reserve currency of the world. I think it will happen, but I don't think it's going to be within the next 10 years.
I think it's interesting.
Can I just make a point to people? I don't want to sound too alarmist or anything like that. I just want to make a point to people who were talking about cash before. If you're worried or you're concerned that major currencies like the US dollar are going to collapse, holding cash, just something to consider, may not actually be a great solution. I think you need to actually have some other assets behind you in that event. And I just want to point out to people, because a lot of people would know this, that India, I think it was about 10 years ago, India decided to demonetize their cash. So, and don't quote me the exact figures, somebody can fact check this, but from memory, it was something like if you had notes that were worth more than, say, $20, those notes were not going to be worth anything. You couldn't cash them at the bank. You couldn't spend them. They were worth nothing past a certain point in time. And the way the government was able to get around with that is they said, well, we don't want money laundering and we don't want all this illicit untaxed money, blah, blah, blah. So, look, I don't know. People say we should buy gold. Well, we know the United States at one point made it illegal for you to hold gold. You actually had to hand it back in. So I'm not going to tell you what the solution is because I don't know. But what I will say is please be vigilant, because we are undoubtedly going to go into a time when there's going to be massive instability. And we saw during COVID just how much power the government can wield over us. So I'm not sure what the solution is, but don't let yourself get into a false sense of security that you've got 10 grand or 100 grand or something under your bed in $100 notes, because that may not actually work. The government could just come and change things.
Well, it's interesting that, can I just say this, that the central bank reserves from developing companies, they are dropping the supply of euros. It's declined by 1% in their central banks there. Right. And of course, we've seen the central banks, they're gobbling up gold. They have been doing for a number of years. But that's interesting. Now that we've been talking about the euro currency, it's starting to lose its popularity a little bit as
Yep.
well.
No doubt about it.
So just what Shaq was saying, it happened on the 8th of November 2016, and 86% of the currency in India was taken out of circulation.
Wow. Okay.
Did you look that up, or do you actually know that off the top of your head?
I knew it off the top of my head because I was looking at it on the screen. the link for the people, if they want to read about it for themselves, I put it into the chat as well.
Oh,
so
fantastic, mate.
yeah.
What's interesting, going back to the stock exchange and perhaps moving to, we talk about money moving out of New York. There's an actual stat on it. From 2020 to 2023, New York lost nearly $1 trillion in asset management companies as 158 companies moved out of the state. So I'd like to get your opinion on this, Shaq. What are your thoughts in terms of having a Texas stock exchange?
Oh, Taz, I am smart.
I'm smart. Before Shaq answers that question, or the Shade Monkey says anything else that could incriminate us, no, before we go there, I just want to actually thank all the people who are interacting there. I can see it there in the distance. It's fantastic. This is what we're about here at Edge. We want interaction. We want people to be talking, and we want these questions. And I love the fact that some of these questions and answers are actually between each of you. We're all about conversation and interaction. As I say, discourse is the absolute way that we move the world forward in a positive way. So thank you so much for your interaction, guys.
Unless you're a police officer or a poly, you can go. We don't need to hear from you. You can go. Right. Did you guys? I think I sent you this thing. So I'm looking at my LinkedIn profile, and after we did the Aboriginal Cultural Heritage Law stuff, my LinkedIn was full of like government, lobbyists and government people that were looking me up. I'm like, there's nothing on my LinkedIn. There's literally nothing there. I don't have a resume there. It doesn't say where I work. Nothing's there, guys. You're not going to find me.
You know why? Who was front and center underneath Jacinta armpit in all the photos?
Oh dear. Well,
Yeah.
look, I think.
So I'm getting phone calls from people at Dalkeith saying, "Hey, like I saw you on TV at the No Campaign rally." I'm like, "Yeah," because all the major media companies put that up there, right? But they didn't do anything. I went to some Yes campaign rallies as well because I didn't know. Like, okay, what's this voice thing? I want to go and find out the information. I want to know, right? No footage of me on the Yes campaign stuff, but on the No campaign, oh, look at that black guy. Like, what's he doing? By the way, I do want to, before I answer that question, I do want to just make the statement that I am actually not black anymore. And you guys may not know this, but I looked at the US Census last time I was over there, and I've now seen that they've changed the rules over here as well. So if you are Indian, but you were born here, you're white. So my mother is not white, but I am, which is incredible. At 40 years of age, I've finally become white. I don't know what to do with myself now.
Actually, before we need to wrap the show up, but I do want to throw this forward. You did just mention your 40th birthday that's just happened. I've had this here for you since your 40th birthday, and I haven't seen you, which has been bit of
you came to my 40th birthday. What do you mean you didn't see me?
No, because the gift didn't arrive till after, because I'm very well organized these things. So look, obviously we love our t-shirts here. We've got our merch with Edge Radio Australia, and on the back of all the shirts for those who can actually read it from there. Okay, what does it say, guys?
Freedom of speech matters. Edge Radio Australia.
Absolutely.
Now I'm seeing a heart on the other side. Come on, spin it. I want to see what it is.
This is a special birthday present, 40th gift. There we go. He's got his own shirt. Now, Travis, you want to bring that forward?
You have to hold it because I'm on my phone. My laptop died. Perfect. I love it.
No, mate, that's been waiting for you since your birthday. But next time you're in town, you can get that one and away we go. But I just wanted you to know that was there. We're going to wrap the show up. We've only got 3 minutes to go. So I'm going to throw back to Derek, because Derek, we could talk about some finance and politics. 3 minutes. Let's do it.
Times are changing. Times are changing. Exciting times.
Yeah.
And I think that's the whole thing is dig deeper for the information, dig deeper on ideas, dig deeper as to where you want to go, because you're not getting it from other news outlets at the moment as to what's actually going on. Look at what the big banks are doing, look at what the governments are doing, and ask why is this happening?
And thoughts. Can I just say, you asked the question about the Texas Stock Exchange. What I will say is, I think the more competition, the better. What we need to do is to stop allowing big corporations to dominate every industry. We talk about grocery prices being high. Get government to lower the regulations so that other people can set up little grocery stores. We need to start trying to be independent of government. And the best way to do that is to have your own small business, to make your own money and do it in your own terms. Don't mistreat other people. That's why we need to have regulations so things are fair. But that's exactly what we need to be doing. And I hope there's a worldwide push for that. I'm so pleased to see that Europe has actually voted for centre-right political parties.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, look what's going on with Italy. That's fantastic.
I have to quote another show on this one, Don't Punch Down, Joel Jamal.
Yep.
So I think people as a whole, if you're succeeding, instead of like trying to punch down to keep people down so you stay succeeding, we need to stop that shit. We need to start pulling each other up. We need to work as I don't want to say as a family, but just as a whole to make sure we support each other, like especially people who got new enterprises, new businesses. Let's get them past the first 12 months, get them on their feet, get them working, and you never know, there might be some great companies and corporations that come out of it.
Well, you know what? And as you build your business, the great thing about doing it that way and not stepping on others, actually bringing them with you, okay, is that when you build and you become big, you've got this great supporter base and you've got people in your life that you can trust. These aren't people who have just joined when you're successful. They've been with you through the hard times, and then you can really appreciate them. And the way you look at me, Derek, you're throwing me out here, mate. You really are. Because he's looking at me with this great sincerity. I tell you right now, we've got to stop that. Come on, really. It doesn't work. But I genuinely feel that. Like, honestly, this is, grassroots is for a reason, right? But it is about dragging people up, certainly not pushing them down. Don't step on people's backs just to rise yourself. All right. Fantastic. A quick little plug, of course, while we've got 30 seconds. If you want some financial advice, I don't give any, all right? But if you want to know about the financial systems,
not advice, education.
I'm not, excuse me, I was going there, but never mind. I know a great group that does education. It's called Blue Sky Factory. How do we find you there, mate?
Go to our website, blueskyfactory.com.au. There's no E in blue. Just go to blueskyfactory.com.au.
All righty. That's the end of the show.
But they can't spell, but they're good with maths.
And with that, we're going to finish the show with Houdini. It's Edge Radio Australia.
You know we don't get banned for that, right?
Quick.